As the great David Spade once said in the critically lauded, award-winning masterpiece of cinema, Grown Ups 2, he said, you can't win them all. And even though the Warriors did show some fight in the second half of this game, and that did mean something, this was still a blowout. Fortunately, Sophia Jones, Larry Krueger, and yours truly are breaking down a tough one for the Warriors in Cleveland next. It's a Friday Night Live post-game edition of the Krug Show and Golden Days. Larry, you ready?
Let's do it.
Sophia, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, we'll do. They did get their ass kicked. Let's go!
That is it for us today, and we will leave you with a... I can't do it. No. We'll do it live! Fuck it. Do it live! And things suck! Woo!
Let's go! In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. Cause I get what I want and I like what I see.
Friday night, baby! Hey now, Larry Krueger, Sophia Jones, yours truly. It's a Friday Night Live edition. At least it's Friday, right? Larry, how the hell are you doing? Sophia, how are you doing? I'll play the moderator tonight. I feel like Larry on Wednesday, I talked way too much. I'm going to just ask questions, and you two are smarter anyways. Sophia, I'll start off with you. Ladies first. We're gentlemen here. Your reaction. The Warriors got their butts kicked. Was there a positive to this? It was an awful start, 136-117. The final, Sophia, how are you doing? And what was your immediate reaction to an ass kicking in Cleveland?
I am doing well, and my initial reaction was, yes, it was pretty brutal, especially in the first half, but a little bit in the second half. It was nice to see some amount of fight, especially from the bench unit and especially in that fourth quarter. But overall, I felt like this was Kenny Atkinson exploiting his history and knowledge, being a former member of that Warriors staff, and just being able to pick apart the pieces of both the Warriors offense and defense.
Larry, people can follow you on Twitter at SportsLarryK. And again, Sophia, people can follow you at SophiaJones_2. How are you doing, brother? Your reaction.
Well, I mean, you know, this is a pattern that I don't like to see. Well, first of all, there's no shame in losing to the Cavs. They're 10-0. They're 5-0 at home. They got a lot of talent in the prime of their career. They're hungry. You know, they got everything going in the right direction right now. So it has nothing to do with this loss. But I just really think that the Warriors need to change their thinking from the old era to the new era when it comes to trying to put together lineups. And I don't want to see Wiggins starting. I think Wiggins is better off the bench, and I'd rather see Kuminga or Moody. You know, the fact that Moody only played 17 minutes, that kind of bugs me. I mean, I'd like to see Moses play more. I'd like to see Kuminga play more. I really don't think the Warriors can win a title this year unless somehow Kuminga and Moody are major players for them. And I'd like to see them feature those guys and fill in around them, since they are their 22-year-old, 3-year veteran lottery picks. And the best players on the team are 34, 36. You know, they're older. You know, it's a long year, but I mean, this was another example of, you know, he starts Wiggins, he starts Payton, he brings Kuminga and Moody off the bench. Moody only plays 17. They both found their way to double figures, but I think they have to be featured. I'd love to see Kuminga's too big of a talent.
Yeah.
To, you know, I mean, he wants $228 million. Yeah, it's laughable right now as you're playing him off the bench. But if you started him and made him the focal point of your team, maybe he would be worth those dollars. But I just get the feeling they're going to continue to kind of not value getting him or Moody in any kind of a rhythm. And I could see them packaging those guys and moving off of them at some point And I don't want to see that. I want to see them commit to them and build around them and feature them. Instead, they don't seem interested in doing that.
I'm 1,000% with you, Larry. Like when I saw the starting lineup tonight, it's more of Kerr and who he trusts on this team, which is the folks that won a title with him in 2022. More specifically, like you said, Andrew Wiggins started, did not have a good game. Gary Payton II started for I think the second or third game in a row. It worked out in the Celtics game. Did not work out tonight in Cleveland, where the Warriors started this game down 20-2. That was the run that Cleveland started this game with. Cleveland also shot 14 of 20 from deep to start this game. Sophia, what are your thoughts? I mean, I felt a lot better, or I do feel a lot better. Piggybacking off what Larry said, I agree. I feel better watching the younger players on this team, the future of the Warriors. There's something stale about seeing like the Wiggins minutes. I'm with you. The GP2 minutes, and also somebody, of course, in the chat, and this happens routinely with the ignorance, right? Where you have bacon and eggs breakfast croissant saying in the chat that he hates the fact that Kuminga gives minimal effort. What game were you watching? He was one of the only players in tonight's game who was doing anything. He also, tonight was an example of the type of numbers Kuminga would be putting up if he was on a bad team. And this is why you pay a player like Kuminga big money, because eventually he's going to put it together. If he was getting real minutes, you would at least see the stats by now. But when I see ignorant stuff like that,
I mean, it sucks.
It sucks, Moses. I totally agree with you. It's ignorant.
Well, it's ignorant. You're being ignorant.
Don't judge. Don't judge a guy just by the look on his face. I mean, you know, sometimes. I mean, I know sometimes people's body language matches their emotions, and sometimes it doesn't.
Correct.
And sometimes there's no connection. And I definitely don't think that he wasn't playing hard or didn't care. I mean, come on. I mean, he cares. I mean, he does have a look on his face that, that may be easy to misread, but I would try not to read the player's face as your barometer for, are they playing hard?
Well, and especially for tonight's game, when he led the team in scoring with 21, he had a 21.5 rebound, 5 assist night, 7 of 14 from the field, but was 3 of 7 from deep. This is, of all the games, it's absurd picking this one to levy criticism against Kuminga of all people. But Sophia, what are your thoughts on the starting lineup, on the fact that we're still seeing like the veterans getting the bulk of the minutes, even though, at least in my opinion, and Larry seems to feel the same way, that the better players on this team are the ones not starting. Sophia, what are your thoughts on that?
Especially, I feel like when you look into the situation where this is the 4th game of them being on a road trip, they're coming off of a very emotional win versus the Celtics. That can wear on some of these older players and, like you said, the stale lineups a little bit. So where you have a Kuminga or a Moody to just come in and provide more of a spark, I feel like that will be beneficial, especially talk about Kuminga and his play. He had a very solid offensive performance tonight. He was able to shoot well from the 3. It's something where, though, because he is in that second unit and coming off the bench, he's not able to seem like he's being as impactful, because he's one of the only people really doing much and taking on that load, as opposed to playing in that first unit with a Steph Curry and just being able to find a lot more of his baskets and affect the game through his offense, because there are other players surrounding him that can contribute more as well.
Good call. Larry, for the first time in a long time, we saw DeAnthony Melton play. I think he played the first, 3 games of the season, 2 or 3. I'll get those numbers in a second here. But he played a lot. He was one of the first guys off the bench. I was a little disappointed to see Moses Moody be a victim of these rotations. I don't think he didn't come in until, if I'm not mistaken, the second quarter. I think he was the 11th guy off the bench in Kerr's rotations tonight. With Melton back, one of the negatives I thought was they immediately got smaller again. When you're smaller, it affects your defense, especially because it makes it damn near impossible to be an effective perimeter defense when you've got a band of hobbits out there, man. Like a 6'3" guy is going to have a hard time guarding a 6'9" dude putting up a jump shot from the 3-point line. Besides that, overall, what were your thoughts on the Melton minutes and seeing him coming back for the Warriors tonight?
I mean, I like him as a player. It wasn't one of my favorite games of his, but I mean, I just think, overall, you're right. I mean, the Warriors have a small team, and they're gonna be some lineups that you look at them and you go, I don't know. That's those guys don't complement each other that well, but they're probably one. They probably have one too many guards and one too few bigs. But I do like Melton. I think he's a good two-way player. I like his intensity. I like his basketball intellect. I like his ability to share the basketball, to be a defender, be a factor on that end. There's a toughness about him that I really like. This game, I thought the guy that was really missing was the scoring of Buddy Hield. I mean, Buddy Hield has been a dominating scorer. If he had another 25-point night, the Warriors would have won this game. Instead, he played 18 minutes. He shot 4 of 11. Or he played 13 or 19 minutes. He shot 1 of 4 and wound up with 3 points. So 3 points is kind of a non-factor night for Buddy Hield. I just don't understand why Buddy Hield would ever only take 4 shots. I mean, Slow-Mo is taking more shots than Buddy Hield. Looney is taking more shots than Buddy Hield. Make that make sense.
So, Sophia, what did you see tonight? For the folks on the Krueger show, by the way, who this is your first introduction to Sophia Jones. She's a former point guard for the San Jose State Spartans. You played D1 basketball. You grew up with basketball. Your dad, Mark, is the voice of the NBA, in my opinion. I know a lot of people might say Mike Breen, but your dad is a close second, and he played D1 basketball, or he played at least college basketball. I can't remember if I was D1 or not, but that's the introduction to Sophia Jones for the Krueger show audience tonight. And what did you think about Melton and the fact that Buddy Hield, piggybacking off what Larry said, only had 4 field goal attempts, only had 3 points, and he's the Warriors' leading scorer, at least he was, entering tonight. Your thoughts, Sophia?
Talking about DeAnthony Melton, I feel like I like him because of his defense, and I feel like what the Cavs really took advantage of this game was their ability to just get downhill on the Warriors. They seem to have been able to touch the paint on every single possession, especially with Darius Garland and his speed. And with those paint touches, that collapses the Warriors' entire defense. And that's why you saw so many open threes. The Cavs were unconscious from threes, especially in the first half. And then kind of going to Buddy Hield, like you guys mentioned, he was one of the best shooters and scorers on the team, if not the best. And his production and just his ability to not get off the shots that he usually does dropped off this game, which was a huge factor that the Warriors missed, because it really kind of made everything seem a lot more one-on-one and isolation ball for the Warriors offense, as opposed to the usual ball movement and off-ball movement coming off the screens and staggers that would have gotten Buddy some of those shots that we're used to seeing.
Great call. Why don't we hear from Steve Kerr, who talked about the Warriors' turnovers in this game. And again, it doesn't let up. This is one of the most difficult stretches that any NBA team has seen in the regular season in recent history. When you consider how daunting a 3-game road set is, they beat the Celtics. Incredible achievement. They get their asses thumped tonight by the Cavaliers, and next is OKC. The Warriors tonight had 14 turnovers in this game, 13 of those in the first half, which at least tells part of the story of this game. Larry, after we hear from Steve, I would love to know your thoughts on the Cleveland Cavaliers and how much of this was them versus the Warriors. I mean, is Cleveland that good? We're going to find out from Larry in just a second. But first, here is Steve Kerr talking about the turnovers tonight, which were just brutal, and their next opponent, the OKC Thunder.
And then what are you looking for Sunday in the response?
Well, we got to respond. We got to, we need to practice tomorrow. We got to execute better. We had 13 turnovers in the first half. We were completely disorganized, and that's where I feel like we need the most work. We've got to continue to work on our organization and just getting settled so that we can execute and understand how to execute against a team that's playing, at that level defensively.
Larry, how the hell did the Warriors turn the ball over 13 times in the first half? What did you see? Was it the Cavaliers' size? And what are your thoughts on Cleveland as a whole, man? Are they this real?
Well, they're absolutely real. I mean, Evan Mobley is one of the best young big men in the league. I mean, he's an incredible talent. He had 23 tonight. Okoro can't shoot at all, but he's a great athlete. And then Jared Allen is a tremendous runner, shot blocker, rebounder. I mean, he gives them length and a rim protector. And then the backcourt, I mean, those guys are all-stars. I mean, Winston Garland's kid, Darius Garland, he had 27 tonight. He was plus 30. Donovan Mitchell, I think, is the best player on the team outside of Mobley. And you know, they got 20 off the bench from your good friend Ty Jerome. Karis LeVert is an NBA player of note.
He is.
So I mean, you know, I don't love their bench, but they've got legit size, and they've now played together for a while, so they know each other. I don't know that Garland and Mitchell are the perfect mix, but guess what? They're starting, you know, they're starting to play well off of one another. Okoro, in a lot of ways, is, you know, even though he's not an offensive player, he's kind of a perfect piece here because he can run, he can defend, he's athletic, he can finish, and he really can't shoot. And he's on a team, you know, where they don't want him shooting. They've got Garland and Mitchell and Mobley. You know, they want other guys shooting. So, yeah, I think this is a legit team. I think this is going to be one of the 3 or 4 best, or one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the East for sure, come playoff time. And they're a bad matchup for the Warriors because the Warriors don't have bigs, and they definitely don't have the kind of bigs that can match up with Mobley and Allen. And when they play them together, I mean, it's the closest thing that the NBA has seen to Ralph Sampson and Akeem Olajuwon. It's like twin towers.
It's a big team, especially when you consider the fact that Okoro's in their starting lineup. I mean, he could be a center if he was on this Warriors roster, right? But on Cleveland, he's their small forward. Sophia, what did you see tonight that resulted in the Warriors having these 13 first half turnovers, which was the story of the first half, that and Cleveland just being lights out in terms of shooting? We'll break down some of those numbers in a second, but like the starters for the Warriors tonight: Andrew Wiggins, minus 23 net rating; Draymond Green, minus 23 net rating; Stephen Curry, minus 25 net rating. And again, Steph, as Keeve 17 in the chat mentioned, had 6 turnovers in this game, and I think they were all in the first half too, if I'm not mistaken. What happened there, in your opinion? Is it a size issue, which means the Warriors need to make some adjustments? Was it just one of those nights? I mean, that does happen sometimes. Like, what did you see there that resulted at least in all these turnovers? It was a high number.
It was a very high number, and kind of going back a little bit to what Steve Kerr said in his interview, where it was a matter of execution. That execution mostly came in their half court. They weren't able to produce offensively when they're in the half court offense. And I feel like that's partially definitely due to the Cavs' length and their ability to clog up the paint so the Warriors can't penetrate as much as they want to. Also, due to the fact that Kenny Atkinson, again, knows a lot of the Warriors' sets, so he knew specific ways how to guard some of their actions, which I think was another key contributor, because some of those turnovers also that we saw were from, they weren't trying to go up against that set half-court defense. There were a lot where Steph or Draymond was just trying to throw a long pass and get some early offense, and it just ended up getting tipped or going out of bounds. So there were a couple turnovers that we see off of that because they were trying to avoid the Cavaliers' set defense, which they weren't getting much in their half-court offense. So it's reasonable to try to get that early points.
Larry, that is some damn sharp analysis. I like that. Larry, what's your take on former coaches, Larry? I mean, this goes across all sports. I don't know whether it's a bigger or smaller or irrelevant advantage in the NBA, but and again, Sophia, that was fantastic. Larry, what is your take on Kenny Atkinson just having this advantage, if any? Like, did you notice the same thing?
Well, I mean, you know, part of being a coach is knowing your opponent and knowing their tendencies. And once you know their tendencies and what a coach likes to do, then you can kind of read their mail. And I'm sure if you're sitting with Steve Kerr for several years, he knows how Steve's mind works. He's got a good idea of how Steve feels about the personnel, and he probably even knows how Steve feels about his personnel. So, I mean, it's a lot of the secrets are gone, and I just think that, I think it is true. I think, I think teams are more concerned when coaches leave and go elsewhere about losing, trade secrets than when players do.
Yeah. By the way, Key 17 in the chat saying that I'm silly because Okoro's 6'5". How could he be a center for us? How tall do you think Draymond Green is? Take a step back when you think about these things. It is not out of the realm of reality for a 6'5" guy who has some beef on him, some meat on him to be a starting center. He could very easily be a starting center for the Warriors. Going back to tonight's game, the first half, the numbers were absurd. When you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, especially, they shot 47.6. I'm sorry, they shot 47.6% from the field for the game total. But in the first half, they hit 63.6% of their 3-point shots. Isaac Okoro, who we just talked about a moment ago, who, yes, if he was on this Warriors team, Steve Kerr does sometimes go that extreme in terms of who he plays. Isaac Okoro, 3 of 5 from deep. Darius Garland, 2 of 4 from deep. Donovan Mitchell, a perfect 1-for-1. Karis LeVert, 2 for 3. Sam Merrill, who I knew nothing about before this game, 1 of 2. George Niang hit his 1 3-point attempt. Dean Wade, who seems to always murder the Golden State Warriors, was a perfect 1-for-1. And then, God damn it, Ty Jerome, we're going to talk about him in a second, obviously, went 3 for 3 just in that first half from the 3-point line. Sophia, I'll ask you this first. Could the Warriors have done anything in regards to that blitzkrieg in the first half that the Cavaliers presented themselves with? Is there anything you could do when a team's shooting that hot? My answer is yes. Just shut the 3-point line down and let them beat you on 2 if you've got to. But that's me. What did you think, Sophia?
I definitely do think part of the reason was they were just hitting their shots across the board. It was just a group mentality that they were going to hit their threes this game. But kind of a little bit like I mentioned before, I feel like part of that was their ability to get downhill and get so many of those paint touches that then collapsed the Warriors defense, as well as they ran a lot of stuff through Evan Mobley, especially in that elbow area, because we mentioned the Warriors' size. He's a big offensive threat. So again, the Warriors are going to have to sag in a little bit to potentially help a Kavon Looney or Trace Jackson-Davis or Draymond. And that, again, helped to open up the 3-point line for the Cavs. But overall, it was just really an unconscious 3-point shooting effort from the Cavs that, yes, there are things that the Warriors could have done. One of them also kind of just trying to shut it down early because they got into such a big momentum that never really slowed down.
Yeah, Larry, what did you see in that opening quarter, man? I mean, or the first half, is there anything you thought the Warriors could have done? Was there anything, the defense, any adjustments? What were you thinking there, man, when that blitzkrieg was happening?
Well, I mean, I think you got to credit your opponent from time to time. And if you look at, the Cavs had 5 different guys with 4 assists, 7 different guys with 3 assists. I mean, they shared the ball. They had 33 assists. That's a big number. I mean, it's a number that Golden State hits a lot, but it's not a number that you typically see other teams hit against them.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at their efficiency. I mean, they had 33 points, 33 assists. They had 19 turnovers. That's kind of a lot of turnovers. Golden State 32 assists with 17 turnovers. Golden State's done. If there was one part of the Warriors' hot start that I think may be a mirage, it's the fact that they just have been a turnover-laden team throughout Kerr's entire tenure here, and yet this year they're not turning the ball over at all. And I just think that's a hot start that's bound to, anytime you rely on body movement and ball movement as a major core tenet of what you do offensively, there's going to be issues with turnovers. And yet the Warriors this year have been turning it over barely at all until tonight. So I think tonight, I think they're probably going to have more turnovers throughout this year than they did in the first 8 games or so.
Sophia, your reaction to that? That was fantastic analysis there, Larry. Your thoughts, Sophia?
I agree. When you want to play with the pace that the Warriors like to tend with in Steve Kerr's offense and with the amount of ball movement that they have every possession, there are bound to be some turnovers. It's one of those that you kind of just have to, you can try to control, but at the same time, if you try to control, you could fall into the lane of playing it safe, which is not necessarily something that you want to do in as free flowing of an offense that the Warriors have. So it's a little bit of a yin and yang situation where as much as possible try to play free flowing and with that fast pace that Steve Kerr wants to, but also with a lot of the Warriors turnovers, they're not even forced. So there are certain things that they can do that kind of seem just like mental lapses that could be improved on.
The Warriors they trailed the entire game. Cleveland led from the tip. Their biggest lead was 41. There was a point though in the fourth quarter where the Warriors cut the lead down to 18. And if you were watching at that point, there was a little glimmer of hope before Cleveland was like, all right, enough of this, and they shut the faucet. But that second half was so good that Kavon Looney was asked after the game if there's anything you can take away from a second half like that. Looney, I don't know if we can talk about whether or not he had a good game or not, but regardless, here was Looney's thoughts on tonight's second half.
What do you take away from the energy that you guys played second half, close to the game finish?
We just got back to our identity. We know if we play our style of basketball, we play our to our standards and hold up our principles, that we're going to be tough to beat and we can play with anybody. But also, if we don't play with that edge, we can be beat pretty easily. So just knowing that we got to go out there and play with that aggressiveness, that physicality every night, is just a learning.
What do you take away?
Larry, your thoughts on Kavon Looney, man? Sometimes he could be, a point of at least some discussion in regards to minutes. He's cemented himself currently as the backup center on this team, although Kerr loves him. And at times we all do for obvious reasons. My one critique of him typically is his defense on other bigs, but this game tonight was way more than that. Your thoughts on Looney's comments right there in his game tonight as a whole?
Well, 9 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, couple steals, no blocks. He was +2, played 16 minutes. He just kind of, when I see him, he's got such an ugly game. I like him, but there's such lethargy in his movements. He always looks like he's laboring out there. He looks like he's in pain. He's just like an old young guy. He's not even old. He's young. I think he's still in his 20s, right?
He is. He's still 28. He's not even 29 yet. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it's crazy.
That is crazy to me. That's
the guy's like a 28-year-old, 38-year-old.
That's crazy to me.
He's like a 28-year-old, like 15-year veteran or something. He came into the league when he was 7. Now, but no, he's an interesting player. We know he's one of Kerr's favorites. He's he's not an above the rim guy. He doesn't run the floor that well. They need to play. They have Curry and Green and role players and depth. When you have 2 guys like Curry and Green, if they're not going to have big nights tonight, they didn't. 12 for Curry, Green had 6. You need to be on point on several other phases of the game, and they just weren't. They turned it over too much. They, the points in the paint, they did nicely points in the paint, but they got beat on the glass. Wasn't beat bad, but they got beat on the glass. There's just other elements of the game that they need to be a little bit more efficient in if they're going to beat a Cavaliers team on the road without a big performance from either of their 2 veteran stalwarts.
Absolutely right. You have to bring your A game to beat Cleveland. Sophia, though, besides the Warriors and how they performed tonight, how the hell is Kavon Looney still 28 years old? He doesn't turn 20. Dude, he doesn't turn 29 until February 6th. It feels like he's been playing 20 years in the NBA, when in reality, age-wise, Larry, you and I, either of us, could be both Looney and Sophia's dad. it's within the realm of possibility. That is one of the craziest things to me. All kidding aside, though, Sophia, what are your thoughts on Kavon Looney's game? And if you have any comments on the fact that he looks 50, 45, that's wild to me. Your thoughts, Sophia?
Yeah, kind of going back to his game and his role as that backup center. It's interesting because him and Trayce Jackson-Davis do present different skill sets. And so I think in different games, you might want to lean towards one more than another. I felt like this game going up against an Evan Mobley, Trayce Jackson-Davis could have been a little bit more aggressive, in my opinion. However, he does run the floor really well, a little bit better than Looney, even though that was one of his points of emphasis in this offseason. With Looney, he's a little bit more rebound-oriented and back to the basket that sometimes the Warriors need in a game. But it's like, overall, I do think that both of them have really good skill sets, but just in different areas. So you have to pick and choose which one you want to get. And as to your comments about his age, it's interesting, again, because I reference a lot, you look back to his high school highlights and people were calling him the next Kevin Durant because of the way that he moved on the court. He was very shifty, very fast, and very light on his feet. It's almost that his transition from wing into forward also slowed down some of his movement a little bit.
But he does lumber, dude. Like, Larry, you're so right. And it's just those he had so many surgeries on his hips, like, that I think that's why he moves the way he does. But it doesn't explain the Gary Oden face either. God, I feel so mean talking about this. It is funny, but it's mean. I'm sorry. I'll stop. And come on, but a player I do want to focus on for a second here, totally shifting gears. And I'd love to know you two's thoughts on this. And that's Andrew Wiggins. I thought he had a terrific start to the year. In that Portland game, he put up 20. In the Clippers game, which they did lose, he still put up 29. In that Houston game, he was 2 of 4 from 3, and he had 15 points. But since then, it's been 3 straight games where it's been okay. Like, I thought he did decent against the Celtics, even though he missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts, still had 16 points. But in that Wizards game, he was awful. Like, 5 points, 0 of 6 from deep, 1 of 9 from the field. And then tonight, he was part of that starting unit that was just completely ineffective. Meanwhile, you have guys on the bench. Moses Moody, I think all of us love him. And Moody played a collective 17 minutes tonight. That includes all the garbage time. Lindy Waters didn't even show up until the very end of the game. That was the true garbage minutes, were the Lindy Waters and Guy Santos minutes. You see Gary Payton didn't play that much, fortunately. He got taken out after 10 minutes, but Buddy Hield only played 19 minutes, and then they called the night for him. My point is, if you're going to trade someone, I personally feel like it should be Wiggins. Larry, I'll start with you, man. I know you said this earlier and you brought his name up, and you and I are both on the same page, so I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, but when you look at the game log in terms of what he's been doing, the inconsistency is still there. Even if he looks better, it's still there. And as good as he might be on defense, there are nights like tonight where he's ineffective. He couldn't stop anybody. Like, at a certain point, dude, like, is it a crutch thing for Kerr where Wiggins is now his new Klay Thompson? Is it, what are your thoughts on the Wiggins thing? Because I feel like this could hurt them at some point.
To me, sometimes, and you see it in basketball, but sometimes stuff gets stale and you need to move. And, I just really feel like Wiggins has talent. He's got a lot of talent. In some ways, he's been a perfect player for this team because he came to this team when, they needed a rotation player who didn't have an ego and didn't have, some kind of, shot. He's not counting every shot. And Wiggins has made so much money and has been so successful off the court that I think he's looking to fit in. He's looking to get along where there's not everybody in the league is. Some guys are looking to get theirs and screw everybody else and screw getting along. So I think in a way that was great initially, but as time has gone on and Steph's gotten older, Clay's moved on, Green's gotten older, they need Wiggins to take on a more assertive role on the floor, and he's just not capable of it. He is a guy that has talent, he has game, and he badly needs a change of scenery. And I would trade him for somebody who's exactly him, who also needs a change of scenery. And there's at least come end of January, first week of February, there will be 25 guys that need a change of scenery around the NBA, and he's one of them. And I hope they find a good spot for him and find a couple pieces in return, because I just think that when you look at, first of all, he's got the big money deal. So if they're going to get involved in any big name guy, the deal's going to be Wiggins as the money and Kuminga as the talent. So those guys are most likely going to get traded together, probably with other assets. I saw the stories this week that the Warriors, according to the reports, are going big game hunting. They should. Mm-hmm. They absolutely should. I don't want 34 or 35-year-old Jimmy Butler because he's 34 and 35 years old. I don't want. But I'm all for them making a deal. I think they could, Kuminga is a very nice player. I wouldn't want to move him, but I'm at a point now where if they're not going to play him and build around him and they don't want to pay him, then the smartest thing is to move him. So I think I can almost guarantee you that there will be a trade this year that will involve Wiggins and Kuminga departing.
Oh, both.
And I think that, no doubt. They absolutely are going to be in the same trade. Wiggins to bring the money back, because nobody's going to give you somebody super young. The Warriors aren't sharp enough to figure out what young player they should trade for Kuminga. They're talking about guys like Jimmy Butler and, old guys who, so they're not going to find a young match. So they're going to need to have a contract that matches up. And that's why Wiggins makes sense. And then Wiggins himself is not worth anything. So that's why you got to attach Kuminga. So to me, they're going in a trade together at some point this year before the trade deadline, probably for a couple pieces that fit better.
And Sophia, before I ask for your thoughts, I just wanted to point out that Andrew Wiggins, a couple people in the chat are saying after one game. No, I literally just read off his game log. That it's been a series of games where, again, it's the same shit, different day. On the year, Andrew Wiggins is averaging 15.8 points per game, good for third on the team. Stephen Curry is back to being the team leader in scoring at 21.2 points per game. Buddy Hield directly behind him at 21.1. But with that said, Sophia, what do you think about this? Like, my concern with Kerr for years now has been that he has these crutches where, like, he just can't help himself when it comes to who to play on the court, and it's always the veterans. It's always he's playing favorites with the title players from 2022. And sometimes like Kerr is clearly a great coach. It's the personnel that is the flaw. Like Kerr, the GM, big issues. Kerr, the coach, great. So as long as you give him the right players, you get good results. But Wiggins on this team, unfortunately, as long as he's on the team, he's going to get minutes no matter what. So what are your thoughts on Wiggins? Are we being too critical? Like, what do you think, Sophia?
For Wiggins, like you guys were mentioning, it's never been a question of his talent or his skill set and what he can actually do. It's about how he shows up. And how he shows up can either be due to himself, personal reasons, or potentially reasons like Coach Kerr, maybe having him in a position where he feels like he's not necessarily able to succeed. Because it does feel like Coach Kerr is holding on to the 2022 Andrew Wiggins that we all saw and loved a little bit more than he should, especially having Wiggins as a starter. Against some of these younger teams too, especially, you need something to counteract that young mentality with that energy, which like a Kuminga, I would be more of a fan of him in the starting lineup as opposed to Andrew Wiggins. But you guys mentioned the trade as well. I would not be surprised if that happens at some point this season. I personally am a fan of the Giannis Antetokounmpo to Golden State trade. I don't know how much it would happen, but things for the Bucks aren't looking too great right now. So
No.
could potentially be on the table when we talk about big money players, but it's something where there needs to be some type of revamp and not just leaning on the old ways of the Warriors team, because you can't lean on the old ways when you have new players and a new league around you as well.
Totally. You're absolutely right. We got some folks who are dropping ducats in the chat. I apologize for missing this. KY dropping $5. Thank you, sir or miss. Can't tell from just KY writing. We spent all summer talking about Mike Lowry Markkinen, when we should have been talking about Walker Kessler of the Utah Jazz or Jared Allen of the Cleveland Cavaliers. We did talk about Allen a lot. But we continue to lack a standard athletic 7-footer. 100% agree with you there. The Jared Allen piece of it, we've talked about it, but Cleveland is not trading him. So that would be wishful thinking. Larry, I'll ask both of you this. Larry, you first. Walker Kessler, the Utah Jazz are clearly all in on the poop for coop sweepstakes, the capture the flag contest, whatever we want to call it. Utah seems like they're right now a front runner in that race. Walker Kessler thus could in theory be available, but I also read a report that the Knicks wanted Walker Kessler, and Danny Ainge, being the psychopath he is, wants 2 first-round picks back for him. You're never getting that for Walker Kessler. But with that said, Larry, your thoughts on KY and his wish for a 7-footer? I feel like he's preaching to the choir, but that's just me.
I mean, Walker, you're gonna get that fired up about Walker Kessler, really?
I don't know.
Really?
I guess compared to what they have, right? It excited him out.
Some stiff, doesn't even average 10 points a game played at Auburn. I mean, it's just all right, I guess. I mean, I don't know. What? Are you related to Walker Kessler? I mean, I gotta ask the question.
He's not awful. I mean, but I hear what you're saying.
No,
man.
but I mean, what's Walker Kessler? All right. I don't see. I mean, it's the same people that were like, "Hey, man, Jakob Poeltl." You know, it's like, no, I mean, stop it. Stop it with your Jakob Poeltl. You know, okay. I mean, I don't. What he did, they lost by 23 to the Bucks, who were no good yesterday. He played 25 minutes. He had 6 points and 8 rebounds and 3 blocks. I guess the 3
Yay.
blocks.
But
I mean, I don't know. It's just not my. That wouldn't be that guy I'd choose, and that's all. I mean, I wouldn't mind. You know, I wouldn't mind getting Zubac out of the Clippers. I wouldn't mind getting Jalen Duren out of Detroit. There are some guys out there that I would like to go after. Jared Allen would be nice. You know, I kind of think the Knicks have a couple of young big men that I kind of like. I kind of like Mitchell Robinson. I definitely like Jericho Sims as a developmental big who can run the floor. I mean, he can really run. I mean, we're talking about a 7-footer with 46-inch vert who can run like a deer. So, I mean, he is really, really intriguing. I don't know. I'm not sure who's the fit, but I'm not too excited about Walker Kessler.
I'm going to drop 2 names for both of you in just a second who are much more sexier than all the names you just mentioned, Larry, Walker Kessler included. Before I get to that,
sexier than Walker Kessler?
Yeah, much.
Just think it over. Think it over.
As crazy as that sounds, yes. Sophia,
if you come back with a Mo Wagner, I'm going to challenge it. Okay, I'm just telling you.
Sophia, do you have any opinions on Walker Kessler? Have you watched him play enough to have any thoughts on him?
I watched him play a little bit. That's just he's the archetype of a player where if the Warriors were to trade for him, I don't necessarily know if they would have gotten much better in the offseason. I'll leave it at that.
That's fair. And again, on the year, Walker Kessler, and I don't know if he's known much for offense, but I also don't know if that's what you want if that's what you're looking for a big, or if you just want someone who plays really good defense and just a tough rebounder. On the year, he's averaging 9.5 points per game, grabbing 11.4 boards per game, and his field goal percentage on the season right now at 68.1%. But he doesn't excite. I don't think it doesn't sound like he excites anyone. The two names that do excite me right now, one is Larry. You and I have talked about him before, and that's Mr. Time Lord himself, Robert Williams. What is it, the second or third, whatever his name is, with Portland.
Yeah.
He excites me. I know he's got durability issues. That's been a concern of his. He misses a lot of time due to injury. But again, Rick Celebrini is a wizard when it comes to being the head of medicine for a professional sports team. He does a marvelous job keeping players out there. Sophia, I'll start with you on the two names that really stick out to me. One being Time Lord, again, Robert Williams? Yeah. And then the other player who I would love, I think he would be perfect on this Warriors team, is Vucevic, Nikola Vucevic from the Chicago Bulls, who granted is older, granted to a certain extent is a defensive liability. But again, the Warriors played team defense. You're seeing Buddy Hield, for example, not being the liability he's been known for being for most of his career defensively, because he plays on a team that plays defense on a string. Jerry Stackhouse is doing a fantastic job. Yes. Is Vucevic a bad defender for most of his career? Yes. But is he also a savage rebounder who also spaces the floor as one of the premier shooting bigs? Yes. I would love him on this team. Those are the two names I'm looking at. Sophia, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Vucevic and Time Lord?
I think when we talk about a center that we want to bring onto the Warriors team, what I would personally really look for is just a player that is extremely physical, that can just be that presence inside the paint to go up against the other team's big men, or just be a clog in the paint in general. You mentioned Robert Williams, and how with the Warriors medical staff, that is very enticing, and that's a great point, because he has shown to miss some games, which the Warriors do not need any help with doing that. But he would be a very physical and athletic and explosive player, especially with a player like Steph Curry that likes to come off of a lot of pick and rolls and throw lobs. He could work really well in that offense. With Vucevic, I will be a little bit more reserved in that, just because I feel like if we're going to go after a big, we want to make sure that they can defend. And like you mentioned, with Jerry Stackhouse's new defense on the Warriors, which he's been doing a really great job, he could improve in that aspect, but it's just one-on-one defense kind of doesn't matter how much a coach can influence you. It's just about you and the other player in that moment.
Yes, miss. Larry, Jonathan Brand mentions Jackson Hayes of the Lakers, not available. Yeah. He's on the Lakers, literally. Nick Fensky saying Jaren Jackson Jr. would be perfect in theory, but
be awesome.
Memphis won't give him up. Larry, your thoughts, man, on some of the names we've been talking about?
Well, I mean, it's all, I like Vucevic as a scorer, but I kind of agree that they need more of an athlete, more of an enforcer, more of a little bit more of a. Vucevic is more of an offensive player at this point. I mean, he can shoot the ball from the perimeter. He'll stretch the floor. He's a nice piece. But I'll give you a guy that I kind of like. I kind of like Jonathan Isaac in Orlando, and I just look at him as a guy who's making too much money. He's a power forward, who 6'10", 230, 240. Seems like he's not necessarily a great fit. Doesn't have consistent production, but has a lot of talent. I mean, you could probably flip Wiggins' contract for Isaac's contract. They probably match up. To me, Isaac's an interesting player because it seems like he's a better player than he's not thriving where he's at right now. Yeah. The other guy, if Brooklyn is really interested in Kuminga, what are they offering? Are they offering Nick Claxton?
No, you got to get Cam Johnson's got to be the player that comes back in that deal, right?
But how about both? How about making a bigger deal and getting both those guys? Because I think Claxton is the kind of center that I'm thinking of. Long, rangy, can really run the floor. I mean, you gotta if the Warriors want to get out and run. So I mean, and Looney is not it. So you gotta have somebody a big who can run the floor. That's why Jared Allen is so exciting because he gives you that big man, but he's also a rim runner, and this guy's a finisher and he can run the floor and you don't slow down when you play him. I don't know if Robert Williams can do that, but I kind of like Robert Williams too if he's healthy.
And another player who on the Orlando roster who I've looked at, he just signed a free agent deal, but in theory, I think you could trade for him without giving up a major asset. I don't want to trade Kuminga, man. I hope it doesn't get to that. I hear what you're saying. It might, but the Magic have a center named Goga Bitadze, who I think would be another perfect player as a backup big on the Warriors. I don't know if you two have an opinion on him.
People have suggested him before. He's a good fit. I'll tell you right now. I mean, I know they signed the contract, but I would love to try to make a big play for the Wagners. Give me Mo and
Both
Franz. Yeah. I'll take Mo and Franz, and you can have them Kuminga, and you can have, you can want Pods, and you can, we can make a move there. We can make a pretty attractive, package. But yeah, I mean, to me, that would be a nice. I mean, they're not getting rid of Franz Wagner, but man, he's, Kuminga wants Franz Wagner money.
Yes.
So I mean, it's could he get it? Possibly. I don't know. I mean, it really kind of depends. But Wagner's, I'm a big fan of his game. He's really.
I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you on that. Sophia, any other names that you feel like we've missed? Or any final thoughts on potential bigs out there?
Yeah, the kind of last one I would say maybe to throw out is Mr. Asia Wilson, Bam Adebayo with the Heat. I feel like talk about a defensive player. I personally think he should be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year a lot of the recent years that he's been in the league. And you talk about a presence that can really dominate the paint. He's not as much back to the basket, but he can float around. And I think that would be really beneficial. We talk about explosive athletic players that can run the floor. I feel like he would be a pretty decent fit, honestly, with the Warriors.
Totally with you. One problem there is, and again, there's people who are overreacting, right? You have, for example, Han Solo Dolo, love you for your support of all our programs. But look at him already panicking, right? There's no panic buttons after this game. And Han Solo Dolo writing that this team can't hang with the elites at full strength. And I'm guessing you wrote that because the Celtics did not have Kristaps Porzingis or Jaylen Brown, which I understand plays a part in all this, and Brandon Podziemski does not equal them in terms of value or talent. With that said, that game against the Celtics did mean something. I wouldn't diminish that especially given they were playing at TD Garden. But with that said, there is a point made that I think is valid and I think we should talk about because this has been plaguing the team all season, and that is their starts. KY in the chat dropped $2. Thank you for saying that people blame Jonathan Kuminga for this team's bad starts at the beginning of the season, and it resulted in Kuminga moving to the bench. It wasn't just the bad starts; it was Kuminga was in his head those first few games, and thankfully he's out of it. He's much more himself now. We're starting to see the Kuminga that we saw most of last season, but the starts are still bad. And I looked at I'm going to do some more research on the first quarter stats when I have more time. But what I pulled up really quickly right now is in terms of scoring. And this is courtesy of teamrankings.com. The Golden State Warriors are 19th out of 30 teams in the NBA in terms of first quarter scoring. They're averaging 26.9 points per game. In that Boston game, they started, I believe, down 14-3 before they turned things around. The point is they're not starting games well. This has become a trend, and their depth has been the reason why they've been able to overcome these poor starts and eventually blow teams out of the water. And it is peculiar that usually the same starting lineup is out there again in the second half. Not always the case, but mostly. And they seem to be doing fine in the third quarters, but the first quarter has been an issue. Mr. Krueger, sir. No, wait. No, they're not booing. They're Krueger, baby. They're Krueger. Larry Krueger. Why is this team having bad starts, man?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know that there's a ready-made answer, but I think it has to do with the fact that they don't have a set 5-man lineup. They don't know who's going to be in that 5th spot. They're still kind of playing around with some lineups and trying to figure out what works well. I think Steph has probably said, "Hey, I'd like you guys to start GP2." Okay, that gives them one look. It's more of a defensive look. But I just think that they don't have the right 5-man mix yet. I think they need more scoring somehow in that starting 5 than they have.
Interesting. Sophia, if your San Jose State Spartans were playing like this, where they're having these poor starts, what kind of adjustment do you think your coach would make, if any, or what would your coach be telling your team in terms of how to correct these early mistakes?
Yeah, it's hard to really give a clear-cut answer. I think if we gave a total solution, we might have coaching jobs right now. But I think part of the reason would be due to the instability in that starting lineup, because when you have that instability, it creates a little bit of a decrease in chemistry, which is crucial on how you step on the floor and come out. And I mean, especially today, like we said, there's no need to hit the panic button. While it has been occurring a little bit this season, it was really apparent today. 4th game of a road trip, coming off an emotional win. I feel like they could have potentially been looking forward to that OKC Thunder matchup, top of the West for both teams. Could have been a little bit of that in the mix. So it just could be not wanting to start and be complacent, especially since with some of the players, it's a lineup that has experience and that has won. So you just really don't want to be complacent.
Larry, Onema King, sorry for the mispronunciation, potentially they're saying, it hurts to say this, but the bad start, it's Stephen Curry. When are we going to talk about him? And they're not the only one. What the F is Fashion writes, Steph didn't look like himself. Pinoy reformat bringing levity, saying, I'm old. I also have slow starts, taking a dig at the older Warriors lineups that are starting these games. Steve White, bold take, saying Steph played like trash. Han Solo Dolo saying Curry played like ass and was soft. I have never seen this much slander directed towards Stephen Curry. His stat line tonight, just to paint a clearer picture, 12 points. 5 of 10 shooting, was just 1 of 4 from deep, was again led the team in negative net rating with a -25. And I think, Larry, you mentioned the turnovers, 6 in this game. Larry, are people justified in criticizing Curry like this? This is wild. This is crazy. What's going on here?
Well, this is why I picked him to win 38 games because your best player is 36, and this is the biggest grind sport there is. I mean, this thing's a total grind. It's a young man's game. He's 36. So, I mean, yeah, you had a terrible game. You had 2 assists and 6 turnovers.
It was a bad game.
That's bad. He took 4 threes. He missed 3 of them. So, yeah, it wasn't a good performance from Steph, and this is the way it's going to go sometimes. And this is why the Warriors, they're off to this hot start, but people are talking title way too early. Because the reality is, it is a marathon. Mm-hmm. It is a marathon. And they are trying to drive across country with a front right wheel and a back left wheel that are bald. And it's like, will they get across country on 2 bald tires? We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. It's nice that they got a bunch of water in the trunk. But it's like you still are going to have to drive cross country on 2 bald tires. You got an older Steph Curry. He's 36. He's just not going to be able to do it every night. He's not going to be able to play at a high level every night. And as he ages, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So, yeah, I mean, that is why I think the Warriors are more like, closer to a 40-win team than a 50-win team. It's because this is, you're already starting to see fatigue, and it's November the 8th, and the season started on Halloween. So it's like, we're a couple weeks into this thing. You know what I mean? And they're going to be going every other night or whatever, or every third night or whatever it is. till May, and June if they go to the finals. So I don't know. To me, that was why I picked the Warriors to win 38 games, is that their best players are older, and there's no way around that. You're not going to be Father Time is undefeated. You're never going to beat Father Time. Eventually, you're going to get old, and he definitely has.
Unless you're Tom Brady, of course, then you're ageless. But you're absolutely right.
Gordie Howe, or
dude, Gordie is still, to me, is forever underrated, dude. That guy, he defines old man strength. Wasn't he playing until he was like 59? Right?
Well, he just kept coming out of retirement as almost like a joke. But I mean, but yeah, the guy played forever.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Carson Taylor in the chat dropping $1.99, writing that Wiggins and Gary Payton II got to go, or at least can't start. And I'm wholeheartedly with you. And the got to go part, I'm not, at least not with GP2. I'm not sitting here saying trade him, but I don't think he should be starting. And again, I think that the huge reason for this, Sophia, and I'll ask you this, is Kerr mentioned this a few weeks ago publicly, and we're seeing it on the court that GP2 seems to be like a comfort blanket for Steph and Curry. It seems to provide him with security. Are you noticing that as well? Like, and have you ever seen any instances besides these two of like a secondary player kind of matching a star's minutes because the star likes this specific player in the court? It's bizarre. I've never seen this before, at least not with the Warriors. What's your take on Steph, and any thoughts on the GP2 minutes, like at least matching Steph's to start each game?
Yeah, in terms of Steph, I mean, none of us are discounting how great of a player he is and how great of a player he has been, but have to acknowledge the fact that he is getting older. He suffered an ankle injury very early in the season. An ankle sprain. He recovered from that, but even then, that could sometimes come back up and just ache. But knowing Steph is, I don't think he's really gonna be necessarily like a extremely harmful player to have on the floor. He has that veteran presence. He knows the Warriors offense. He's a leader more than anything, because even if we do talk about bringing some more of those young guys, they're still going to need a leader on the floor to direct them. And Steph does that, especially having the ball in his hands a lot. But he's going to have off nights, which is why we need some of these other younger players to step up. And when you talk about Gary Payton II, one thing that I have noticed, you talk about him being a little bit of a blanket, and one trend that I have noticed more in the NBA is the action of a guard-to-guard screen. And I think that when you have Steph and Gary Payton as your backcourt, Gary Payton is able to take a little bit of that defensive pressure off of Steph, especially in that action that has been a little bit more common I'm seeing recently. So I really think that for a defensive standpoint, that's why he's on the floor. And offensively, he kind of does find the right spots to be in, and he's not selfish. He's not looking to take all the shots, which when you have a Steph Curry on the floor where he's a very high volume shooter, you don't necessarily all the time need a player that's going to match that.
And GP2 tonight only played 9 minutes, 48 seconds, was a perfect 4-4 from the field. But we never saw him again after I believe the first quarter. Finished the game with 8 points, a -9. After tonight, I don't know if we're going to continue seeing this. Maybe this game won't reflect any major decisions from Kerr. Who knows? We shall see. In the chat, $10. Woo! Thank you, Bill M. Wow, thank you. That's a dinner right there. Thank you, sir. Writing that I tend to agree with Larry Krueger on Jonathan Kuminga. I think he has unbelievable potential, but if they're not going to play him and grow him in these areas, he's strong, at which they're not right now, then move him. And Larry, is that what you're trying to say ultimately? Like, are you saying that the Warriors should trade him because they're not utilizing him properly, and so they might as well get someone that they will use? Or are you saying that you think the Warriors will trade him? Like what are you specifically saying about Kuminga when it comes to trading him?
Well, first of all, he's 22. He came into the league at 19. He's basically like an old college senior, and he's improved so dramatically in two and a half years that I think it would be foolish to move him. But the Warriors don't seem like they value what he brings. There's a lot of people around the NBA that do, though. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's one of the best athletes in the entire league. He's got clear dominating athletic potential, and he's going to be a better player 2 years from now than he is right now. So, and he doesn't make a lot of money. He wants a lot of money, so they don't want to pay him a lot of money. So it's like, bottom line is, I think as much as I love his athleticism and think that they should utilize his athleticism, he cannot be stopped going to the hole. They don't have that many guys who beat people off the dribble. They ought to utilize him, put the ball in his hands, let him go to the hole and play off of him. But if they don't have the wisdom enough to do that, I would say, you probably should trade him for a couple guys who have real NBA skill, guys who can shoot it, pass it, dribble it, make plays, guys who are maybe not above the rim guys. I mean, he's an attractive piece because he's an above the rim guy. He's fun to watch. He's an incredible athlete. He's a lottery pick for a reason. But you might want to trade him for, guys who can shoot it and pass it and dribble it and are more skilled, because it's clear that Kerr, values basketball skill over athleticism. He gets frustrated with the athleticism of Kuminga being his strong point, and he has other issues with his game. And I just think that they would rather, I think if they had, first of all, you could get a couple really skilled guys for him, and if you got a couple really skilled guys for him, you could add to your depth, which is already great, and your skill level. And who knows? I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. So I mean, there are guys around the league who can really shoot the basketball, who you could easily get for Jonathan Kuminga, and maybe they ought to pursue that.
A couple people in the chat talking about GP2, echoing what I've been saying as well, which is that, like, Pinoa Reformat saying, is it just me, or has Gary Payton II lost a step as an on-ball defender? Han Solo Dolo adding, GP2 has lost a step. Andy Nugent writing, Gary Payton II played well today, just wasn't as good of a fit in that lineup. Andy also adding, the spacing was terrible with Gary Payton II, Draymond Green, and Trace Jackson Davis on the floor together. That's part of the starting lineup. I agree that does make it interesting in terms of not having a lot of shooters on the floor. ATGYY saying Gary Payton II would not be starting on the worst NBA team right now. That might be true only because he's an unusual fit here, but I'm sure he will play and be useful on a lot of other teams. I agree in the sense that, like, GP2, look, he looked great in that Celtics game. I thought he was important for them to win that game. But I'm also seeing what a few people have written there. I don't think he's the same guy he was in that title season. Like, that title year, you could put Gary Payton II on literally anybody, whether it was Luka Doncic, Ja Morant, that, like, the game's most lethal offensive players, you put GP2 out there and he's making life hell for him. And that's not the player I'm seeing this year. I don't know. What Larry, I'll start with you and then Sophia. Do you think GP2 is the same guy he was 2-3 years ago? And if not, should he still be playing?
Well, I mean, he's healthy right now. That's good to see. I mean, he hasn't been healthy. I think this is the healthiest stretch of his career. I have no problem with him, but I understand what he is. He's a defender. He's the guy that, he can be standing on your left side and you're dribbling with your right hand and he can pick you. He's got that kind of length. I mean, he's just an impact guy. I'm not going to judge him too harshly off the start of the year. He's a veteran. He knows how to play. I think he is a role player on a good role player, a good bench role player on a championship caliber team.
He's 6'2", 195. That's his stature, in case people were wondering.
But he plays like 6'6". and he finishes inside.
And he turns 32 on December 1st. Sophia, what are you seeing from GP2? Any regression there? Is he the same as he was a few years ago? Your thoughts?
I don't really think he's as much the same, but because that when we compare him to those years ago that he was on the Warriors, he was very prolific defender. Like you mentioned, he was instrumental in all those series versus the Grizzlies in guarding John Morant. He was always taking that matchup against the other team best guard. But there has been a little bit of a drop-off. But because we start off so high, that drop-off still has him as a solid defender, which I think fits well onto a Warriors team, especially with the way that Steve Kerr has kind of fit him into his system.
And then you have morons like Key17 in the chat saying that I'm just saying this stuff about GP2. Never mind the fact that so is everyone else. Saying that I'm trying to talk him down because I want minutes for Moody and Kuminga. Yeah, I want minutes for Moody and Kuminga. I think they're better players. Is there something wrong with that, dipshit? I don't understand what you're. Look, you love Gary Payton II. I get it, but he's not the same guy he was 2-3 years ago. He's just not. And Moses Moody. For Moody tonight, for example, and this is a I'm glad his name came up here. Moody, who was starting certain games, hasn't started the last 2 or 3, played 16 minutes, 56 seconds tonight. And like usual, when he plays, he delivers. He was 5 of 10 from the field, 1 of 3 from deep, 33% is passable for 3-point shooting. You can live with that. 11 points in less than 17 minutes, as usual, contributing. But for some reason, he's the 11th man off the bench. Sophia, does it drive you crazy like it does me when you see certain players not getting the run that at least I think they deserve? Do you think he's getting the right amount of minutes in year 4? Sophia, and then Larry, your thoughts on Moody's usage by Steve Kerr on this team?
I'm in agreement where I think Moody could definitely have more minutes. And this has been a very recurring theme through last season and preseason and now, where when Moody steps on the court, he's very efficient and he fits well into both the offense and the defense. And he's just a good, reliable player, which when you look at the Warriors' history with their ability to be turnover prone, I feel like when you have Moses Moody out there that can kind of help stabilize a little bit, that would definitely help. Overall, I just think that he could definitely stand to have some more minutes, especially also because he's a long wing, which the Warriors lack perimeter length. And that would be instrumental in their defense as well.
That's a great call because Moses Moody's wingspan, I believe, is like, what, 7'1", 7'2"? Larry, what do you think, man? I know you said this at the beginning. So I apologize. Yeah, 7'1" wingspan. So I apologize for the redundancy, but that was also like way back at the beginning of the show. Like you said this, and repeat yourself, please, because it needs to be said again, dude. What's going on with Moody and the Warriors? Why is he getting these minutes? Does it frustrate you like me? Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I mean, it's because he's a nice guy. It's because he's an easy guy. I mean, some people are easy to abuse, and that's his situation. I mean, I think Kerr is, he's such an easygoing guy that, when you're managing, a team, it's no different than a family. Everybody's got different strengths and weaknesses. And I think everybody knows that Moody is he's a get along to, he's trying to get along. He's going to go along with whatever your plan is to get along. But it doesn't mean it's in the best interest of the team. It just means that Kerr is going to have less, stank eye from some of the guys who aren't playing if he plays Moses, and he's not playing Moses. So, yeah, Moses should have gotten more minutes last year. Come on. Moses played fewer minutes tonight than Melton. Why? Tell me that. Moses played the same number of minutes as Kavon Looney. Why? I mean, Moses is 22 and should be starting. And it's like, how many excuses are you going to make to not start him? You can't sit there and talk for like a decade about how it's awesome to have Klay Thompson next to Curry because Curry, Thompson's 6'7" and can guard the bigger wings, and then never give Moses Moody a chance to do the same thing when he basically would offer the exact same type situation. He'd be a bigger wing, playing with Steph. To me, it's a better fit than Payton. Payton's more of a defensive player and should be a role player off the bench. And Moody should, as I said at the start, the Warriors are going nowhere if Moody and Kuminga are not central figures in their deal. if they're role players, they're not going anywhere because Steph's old and Green's old, and those guys won't be able to carry you to the finish line. But if you invest in some minutes into your 22-year-olds, then potentially Kuminga and Moody could wind up being, huge rotation players that do lead you to the playoffs. So I don't think they get it yet, but that's how I feel about it.
I agree. All right, we got to touch this subject, and I waited as long as I can. Dr. J30 writing, where was Ty Jerome when we needed him? B Doe Half 2012, Cy Jerome. I haven't heard that one in a while. Hold on, there's a couple more. Neil Hyuga, Ty Jerome is greater than Podziemski. We got to talk about Podziemski as well in a second. Andy Nugent writing, who in their right mind would guard Ty Jerome 30 feet from the basket? He was just hitting shots. Yes, Ty Jerome was on fire tonight. Came off the bench, played 21 minutes, 15 seconds, was 7 of 8 from the field, a perfect 3 of 3 from beyond the arc, 20 points, a plus 13 in net rating, outplayed every one of the Warriors not named Jonathan Kuminga. He had himself a night. There's no doubt about that. Larry, I'll start with you. Any reaction to?
Well, I mean, he's a
Jerome?
veteran player. I mean, he, if you give him minutes, he can. It's the NBA. There's lots of guys who can play. He's one of them. I never was an anti-Ty Jerome guy. I didn't like Anthony Lamb, but I like Jerome at Virginia. I thought he was a good fit with the Warriors. Why? Because he's a big point guard who, the Warriors have Pods, who's kind of a small 2 guard. Well, to me, it seems like if you're going to have a small 2 guard and some smaller players in your backcourt, it's nice to have a big point guard. It just balances things out. And he gave them that. And I think Ty Jerome's a decent NBA player. I really do.
Wow. What do you think, Sophia?
I think he won for this game. Have to think that it was a little bit personal for him because he definitely came into it with what seemed like a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And 2, he really did feed into what was already a really outstanding performance from the Cavs offense. But for Ty Jerome, I didn't really feel like he fit into the Warriors offense when he was a player, just because he was a little bit slower and not as free-flowing, which is kind of how Steve Kerr likes to run his offenses.
And defensively, he was a massive liability. And my entire reason for ever criticizing him, it's nothing personal. Like Keeve17 in the chat, it's nothing personal when you criticize a professional athlete. It's part of this whole paradigm, man. You have athletes, and then you have schmucks like this guy with 2 thumbs pointing his way, criticizing these athletes when it's warranted. It's never personal. My whole beef with Ty Jerome wasn't even with Ty Jerome. It was with Steve Kerr playing him over guys like Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, who were supposed to be playing that year, developing, instead of sitting on the bench watching Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb getting more minutes than them. I digress, though. But yeah, he had himself a night, and he ate up the Warriors big time for the following stats. What are if you have no other comments or thoughts about Ty Jerome, what are your thoughts on Brandon Podziemski? His first game back, I still don't know the details of whatever it was that was plaguing him with the illness. Statistically, he had a decent night tonight. 14 points, 6 of 12 shooting from the field, but, huge but, the 3-point shooting is still not there yet. And tonight, he was only 1 of 6 from deep. Did grab 7 boards, did have 4 assists, was actually a +7 in terms of net rating, which when you consider how this night went, is a pretty interesting achievement. Again, net rate, he's a winner. And that's, I think, his biggest value above all else. The dude plays winning basketball. The 3-point shot is not falling. You have some people critical of Steve Kerr's favoritism towards him. And I think that can be warranted as well. But Larry, I'll start with you, man. What are your thoughts on Brandon Podziemski tonight and on his role in general on this team?
He's kind of a funky player. I mean, in one way, it doesn't matter if you're playing high school ball, college ball, JC ball, pro ball. If you rebound, you play, and he rebounds. So that's one of the reasons Kerr loves him, because he rebounds. Yeah. He always rebounds. He's a great rebounder. He's a phenomenal rebounder, but he's also 6'3" and not that great of a shooter. So, I mean, it's like, what is he? I mean, at the end of the day, what is he? He's a good rebounding, kind of smart player who can play some winning basketball, but he's a 6'3" player who's not an awesome defender. He can take some charges. He does some smart things, but he's not he's not going to hang his hat on defense, and he's not a sharpshooter. I kind of thought his shot was going to be better. I thought it would have smoothed out by now and come around by now. I like him because he's smart. I like him because he rebounds. I like him because he makes the right basketball play. But I also wouldn't, this idea that you wouldn't trade this guy for Lauri Markkanen. I mean, what the hell are we talking about here? This guy's 6'3" and doesn't shoot all that well, and you wouldn't trade him for Lauri Markkanen? I mean, you got to be high. I mean, seriously, the people that are like, it's good they didn't trade Pods for Markkanen. Good in what sense? Only if you want to lose. I mean, Markkanen is bigger and a much, much better player all the way across. So if they really could have gotten Lauri Markkanen and they didn't because they didn't want to move Podziemski, then that's a bad decision. But I do like the rebounding. I do like the basketball IQ. But if the shot doesn't come around, there's lots of limits. There's some true limits on what he is as an NBA player.
Sophia, I imagine your comments will not be as scathing as Larry's. I love that take, though. What are your thoughts on Podziemski? I mean, he brings a lot to the table. I don't think there's any question about that. On the year, he's only shooting 18.2% from deep. That number, I think, is going to go up at some point, but still, we're at this point of the season, and it's at 18.2. Someone in the chat also mentioned he had 4 steals, which is awesome. Your thoughts on Brandon Podziemski and his role in this team?
Yeah, he's a really great role player for the Warriors because he does do a lot of those intangibles on the offensive and defensive end, like his steals, his rebounding, especially taking charges. He makes a lot of those hustle plays, which we talk about going up against a younger and growing league. He brings a little bit of that. But as we mentioned, his shot-making ability is still a little bit up in the air. I think partially you do have to acknowledge that he's still wearing this mask, which he has mentioned before, that it screws with his depth perception and his peripheral vision, which you kind of need both to be able to shoot and play make. So I think that is something that we can't be too critical right now on his shooting ability until he takes off that mask and maybe gets it going a little bit more, because it is an impediment.
Yeah, and he's literally said that he hates it. He's used that word exactly. Sophia, I'll follow up with you first, and Larry, I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well, because the why, I've never gotten a really clear answer. I know he's a great rebounder. I'd say, I don't know if this is fair or not, but at least initial impression, early impression, good, not great in nearly every facet of the game. And a lot of what he's good at could become great at a certain point. But Sophia, I'll start with you. And then Larry, I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. How the hell is he so good at net? Like, how is the team, no matter who's around him, how are they winning when he's out there? He led the Warriors last year in net rating. This year, he's 4th in the entire NBA in net rating. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is number 1 with plus 117. Karis LeVert, who we just saw, is number 2 with plus 111. Derek White of the Celtics, who we just saw, plus 109. Those all make perfect sense, right? Brandon Podziemski, 4th, with a plus 107. Sophia, how do you explain that? It's crazy to me.
It's wild. Just like we mentioned before, the fact that he does do a lot of those little things, and the fact that, yeah, exactly, he hustles. He's a hustle player. He brings a ton of energy. And not only does he bring that energy, but he's the type of player where it feeds off of to the people around him. So when he's getting those rebounds, he's creating early offense, dribbling the ball up the court. When he's getting those assists, he's setting up other teammates for great shots. So he's one of those players that he's doing a lot of the little things that I really think contributes to that overall net rating that we're seeing.
And Larry, before I get your thoughts on that question, just wanted to add that Andy Nugent says Draymond Green is a similar type player as well in terms of playing winning basketball. John in the chat with the more cynical viewpoint, maybe it's not cynical, maybe it's accurate, saying that Podziemski plays with stacked lineups. He's not playing with bums. Let's be real. Again, I don't know if that's true or not. But Larry, what is this kid doing that makes
meaning what though? What's the point of that? So he's playing with good players. What does that mean?
Well, I think his point is that Kerr is constantly putting him out there with the best players on the team, and that's why his net rating is so good. I don't know if that's true or not, but
well, I mean, the bottom line is he's not a good enough defender to not shoot better than he's shooting. I mean, he's got to shoot better than this. I mean, you're right. Last year he shot 38.5% from three. This year he's shooting 18.2% from three.
Yeah.
So that can't continue. Last year he shot 63% from the foul line. That wasn't good enough. We needed him to go up by 10%. Instead, this year he's at 50%. So that's not good enough. His turnovers are up dramatically. His rebounding is down. So I mean, these are, we gotta see. He's got to shoot the ball better. I mean, than he is. It's great that you can take a charge. It's great that you got a high basketball IQ. It's great that you rebound. Those are all great things. 5.3 rebounds, not bad, but he was at 5.8 last year. I'm just saying you can't shoot 50% from the foul line. Granted, small sample size, and he can't shoot 18% from three. So if he gets to closer to 40% from three and closer to 70% from the foul line, I think you're talking about a much more valuable player.
And Podziemski on the year is playing 28.1 minutes per game. His field goal percentage is really low right now, 37.8%. That's no bueno. You got to bring that up. We've talked about the 3-point percentage at just 18.2%. That's
and look what he's taking.
Tough.
He's taking almost 5 threes a game. I mean, It's not just that he's taking a three here and there. He's taking 5 threes a game and shooting 18%.
That is accurate. He's precisely, he's making less than 1 per game. He's making 0.9 3-pointers per game, and he's putting up 4.7. That's not a good clip. But Larry, again, how do you explain all these bizarre bad numbers? Yet every time he's out there, they're winning. Like, how the hell does that happen? Like, is it an intangible thing? Is it?
He knows how to play. I mean, the guy knows how to play. I mean,
yeah, he does. Yeah,
he knows how to play. He knows he can play off of others. He can, there's so many players in the NBA that can't play off the ball at all. And they're on the ball players, especially if they only played in high school and didn't play in college. There's guys that just, they're like, they might as well be playing like a different sport if they're playing off the ball. It's like they can't play. This guy can play on the ball, off the ball. He can play the 2-man game. He can play, he is a very, very skilled basketball player with a high basketball IQ. But he needs to get in the gym and sit there and hoist a bunch of shots and get that shot cooking way better than it is, or he's not going to make near the money that he hopes to.
And 50%, as you mentioned, 50% shooting from the free throw line. That is unacceptable. I don't care how
the NBA.
That's ridiculous. And his rebounding numbers are a little down from last year. Last year he averaged 5.8 boards per game. This year it's at 5.3. He's averaging 4 assists per game. That's up from 3.7 a year ago. Yeah, a lot of these stats. I'm guessing if we see improvement in these statistics, you're going to see the Warriors no longer having games like tonight. I think that's the kind of difference you can get. Sophia, any final thoughts on Podziemski?
Like you guys said, shooting has to improve, especially when they're giving him the ball and they want him to shoot. He could be very good just as a player to be that energy guy, but that's not who Steve Kerr is trying to make him to be. And since he's giving him the ball and running these sets for him to take these shots, he needs to start making them, or else he's going to confine himself to that little bit more of just hustle player.
And Belach in the chat, is that how you pronounce her name? Belach1 or Belak1 saying, take the mask off and cut the hair. Looks like, what's that one character on The Simpsons? The clown's buddy. You know what I'm talking about? Like the
Yeah.
hair is very similar to that character. But anyways, is there anything we haven't touched on that we should touch on from this game tonight? A game that the Warriors lost 136-117. They were down 41 in this game. So that final score reflects a team that did not give up in the second half. I personally loved seeing that. Any final thoughts on this before we wrap up the show with an NBA scoreboard? Larry, I'll start with you, man. Anything we forgot to touch on today?
Well, I mean, a couple things. I mean, the Cavs were plus 21 at the 3-point line. When you're minus 20 plus points in a particular category, that's pretty dramatic. The Cavs just had an amazing night. It's a make or miss league, and they were really going. It was really going tonight. 54% from the field, 48% from three for the game. I mean, these are 86% from the line. I mean, Warriors just got outshot. Warriors actually beat them points in the paint by a lot.
Yeah, I saw that
60 to 42 points in the paint. That was good to see. But yeah, I mean, come on. When one side, it was a wire-to-wire job. They built their lead to 41 at one point. I mean, this is the hottest team going right now in the NBA, the Cavs. Warriors on the road, tough road trip, probably feeling a little pretty good about themselves after beating Boston. They kind of probably, in their minds, the way this thing works. I mean, they're going on the road for 3 games against 3 really good teams. They probably said to themselves, hey, man, maybe we can get one. Let's see if we can get one on this road trip. They got one. So maybe you lose all your incentive after you get one. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know what their internal dialogue is like, but tough 3-game stretch when you got Boston, Cavs, and OKC, boom, boom, boom. And they got one against Boston, and they kind of no-showed this one.
And that's okay. That's I think, which is a point that needs to be hammered. They could have gone 0-3 these 3 games, and you would have lived with that, knowing that this team still is way better than what we expected at the start of the season, and that these games don't reflect who they are because they're all road games, and this team's still building chemistry. But that win over Boston was huge. So for them to lose this game, not the end of the world. Rennell, I believe a Golden Dazer in the chat saying that Sideshow Bob is the character from The Simpsons that Podziemski's hair is very similar to. Sophia, I'm going to ask for your final thoughts in just a minute after we get through these the last of the chat questions real fast. Carson Taylor dropped $1.99 on this. I'm sorry for missing this earlier. Talking about, I don't know. I think this was in regards to players out there that maybe the Warriors could trade for, but I don't know who Mark Williams or Nick Richards is. So, Carson, do you two have any idea?
Isn't Mark Williams the big man who played at Duke?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think
Sophia,
so.
does that?
I thought he was the big man who played at Duke.
Well, then who's Nick Richard? Do you know who that is?
Nick Richards? Yeah, I know Nick Richards.
And are these players that would be good fits on the Warriors?
Richards is a big man.
Okay. Well, Carson, regardless, at least we mentioned their names. So
he's with
Mark
the Hornets.
Williams.
He's with the Hornets.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
He just broke a rib. I think he's out. He's out. He's been out. He's out indefinitely with broken ribs.
Well, I'm not that familiar with these guys, so at least it's out there in the universe now. Mark Williams and Nick Richards. Who knows? Maybe someone watching will go to Mike Dunleavy Jr. and say, "Hey, Mark, I saw this guy say Mark Williams might be good."
By the way, on the Mike Dunleavy front, my mole who was at Pig in a Pickle in Corte Madera said that Mike Dunleavy came in for dinner last night. So
hey, now, what did he eat? What did he have to eat?
I don't know. Barbecue. He had barbecue. I feel like maybe Dunleavy's a regular watcher of the Krueger show, and that brought him into Pig in a Pickle. I don't know.
Oh, hey, now that's some good stuff, man.
I have no idea.
I asked that because I just want to make sure Mark Dunleavy Jr. is not going in there and ordering hey, can I just get a broccoli salad and a corn on the cob and then just doesn't even eat any meat. Not that I'm judging, but it would be curious if that's what he ended up doing. In the chat, well, that's awesome, man. So Pig in the Pickle, an official sponsor of the Krueger show. Did we read our sponsors, by the way? Did we do that at all, Larry?
No. I'm brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Get the brisket chili. I'm also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove along the Monterey Peninsula. Call my good friend Anthony Catania if you have sports cards or collectible needs. He's at 831-521-5264.
I might actually call him because I have a few assets I might want to get rid of, and Anthony Catania is my guy. So what's the number again? One more time. This will just help, right?
831-521-5264. If you're a sports card or collectible enthusiast, Anthony's your guy. He's got a great little place.
I want to see if my Pete Incaviglia rookie card has any value.
Inky.
The strikeout king who can hammer it. Bet Online is the official sponsor of Golden Days, of the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, not to mention NHL, UFC, and MMA. Head to the Bet Online website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. Jeff in the chat, this is an interesting trade proposal, is asking, would you trade Trace Jackson-Davis and Jonathan Kuminga for Bam Adebayo? Held to the F and yes is my reaction. Sophia, would you do this trade?
I would do it. Like I said, I'm from Miami, so I grew up watching the Heat a lot, and I'm pretty familiar with Bam Adebayo's game, and I think he could honestly potentially be a good fit in the dynamic way that the Warriors want to play offense, as well as the physical inside presence on defense.
Larry, I'm sure I imagine you would love this trade as well, but
I mean, yeah, but I mean, Bam is one of 3 or 4 big men in the league that would be perfect for the Warriors.
Perfect.
But I think it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. That's the only reason why.
Bam's a tremendous player, though. I'd love to have him.
Wholeheartedly agree. That's the only reason I don't bring up certain names like his or Jaren Jackson Jr. is because they're virtually untouchable. I can't see those teams ever trading these guys, regardless of who you're offering. But with that said, of course, Bam Adebayo, I mean, you saw him in the Olympics. I mean, even Steve Kerr was playing him. I mean, if it big is on Kerr's good side, I mean, my Lord. ATGYY in the chat mentioning Kyle Anderson. This is Larry Krueger's favorite player to watch. Larry, you love seeing this guy, right? He's your favorite player. You watch his highlights on YouTube when you're laying in bed, having trouble sleeping. You're just watching slow-mo all day. I'm kidding, obviously. You can't stand watching him. But he didn't have a great game tonight. 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, was a -14 in net rating off the bench, 4th worst on the team total. But ATGYY is mentioning that Kyle Anderson should have come in sooner. He didn't come into the game until the end of the second quarter. Little suspicious. I don't know. Larry, did you see anything? Was there anything unusual there from your perspective?
I didn't notice anything, but there's no question that he is a player that is effective. He's an effective player. I just don't like watching him because I don't think he's not fun to watch as far as the way he shoots, the way he passes, the way he dribbles, the way he moves. But he's effective. He's effective.
And you forgot to add the way he eats, the way he drinks water.
He's just one of those guys that he's a brutal watch. I mean, it reminds me of coaching 4th grade basketball when guys shot the ball with bad form and didn't have enough strength to shoot it above their head. And it's weird. I mean, it's like watching him. I can't stand watching him, but he is oddly effective. And I guess I can live with it.
Yeah. I don't like watching him play video games. I don't like watching him take a dump. I don't like watching him smoke a bong load.
I mean, it is a show, it's supposed to be entertaining. And it's like, if the whole team had that level of athleticism, nobody would go.
Sophia, what are your thoughts on Kyle Anderson's style of play, which is why he's called slow-mo?
It's very unique. I can say that. Honestly, though, as the comment mentioned, he did play well against Boston.
Yeah. He hit
This
three
game,
threes in a row.
for this
That's
game,
right.
I
That's right.
honestly don't know how effective he would have been because the Cavs were just so dynamic this game, which directly counteracts the pace that Kyle Anderson moves at. So I think it would have been a little awkward and not necessarily what the Warriors wanted to throw in when you're trying to more so get an energy boost to match what the Cavs were throwing at them.
And Larry, you got to be careful, man. Steve White in the chat saying Sloan was one of his favorite players. Wow. Do you have his jersey,
Wow.
Steve White? I'm trying to figure if you're being facetious or if there's.
Who's your second favorite player? Oliver Miller? Who's your third favorite player? Greg Kite? Joe Klein. I mean, I'd
Alan
love to know.
Smilagic?
Alan Smilagic. Who else is in this awesome array of
Walker Kessler's in there.
Yeah, Walker Kessler, Jakob Pertl.
Oh man, that's some good stuff.
The all brutal watch team.
We should do that.
We should do that. We got to do that.
We'll save that. That'll be a segment we do. The worst team players to watch.
In Kyle Anderson's defense, I will say also because I will say also when I cover the California Classic at Summer League, he was with Team China and he allowed me to be able to do an interview with him. He was actually really nice and pleasant interviewing guy. So kind of, just a little bit of a boost.
Well, that's part, and that's part. Let's be honest about it too. That's part of the reason they like him, right? Is that they want to have a professional bench, with guys who are, they want to have real role players who will, gravitate to their role, play their role, be team guys, be good teammates. You'd like to think that every guy in the league's like that, but that's not reality. But he's got that reputation around the league as he's a team first guy. And as I said, he's very effective. I just like, it's my own immaturity. I like.
Well, no, it's funny, and you're right.
I like an above the rim. I mean, I told you my favorite player is Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah,
I like that kind of. I want to see. I'd rather have Derek. Like if you told me who's a better player, Slow-Mo or Derek Jones, well, probably Slow-Mo. But I'd much rather have Derek Jones. Because Derek Jones is gonna fly in and jam, and he's gonna spike tip it, and he's gonna. You know what I mean? You're going to have like 10 or 12 highlights every week that are like, whoa, did you see Derek Jones last night? Nobody's going to say, did you see Slow-Mo last night?
Yeah, no one's paying money to watch him play. I would agree with you there.
But it doesn't mean that he can't contribute to winning, though. And he probably will.
Yeah. I mean, Minnesota did not want to lose him. That was strictly a financial decision. But no, I hear what you're saying. It's also really funny. It's comical. His style is just comical. So, side note, the Santa Cruz Warriors, I think, made their debut tonight. Don't quote me on that, but I know they're playing, and this is the first time I've actually seen them in
Who's on their team?
I'm sorry?
Who's on the team?
Well, Reese Beekman played for them tonight.
Okay,
Quentin
Virginia.
Post played for them tonight. I don't know if Pat Spencer is still with the team. It's on my box score. Pat Spencer was not with the Warriors, so I imagine Pat Spencer is also in Santa Cruz. That's a fun team to watch. Side note, if you're looking for like a cheaper ticket and maybe easier accessibility, go down to Santa Cruz and watch the G League, man. And it's a good time down there. So yeah. All right, let's go through the NBA scoreboard. Oh, Sophia, any final thoughts from your perspective? Is there anything you feel like we forgot to touch on or discuss or anything?
I have two things. I'll say first. While the Warriors didn't necessarily play up to par like we would have wanted them to, it is also extremely fair to acknowledge that the Cavs had an extremely good game and they're a very talented team. They're undefeated, the only undefeated team in the league right now. So this is nothing to press the panic button over or hang the heads on. We have to look towards the matchup versus OKC. And my second final thought, has to go back to what something Larry said earlier about how Moses Moody is just a nice guy. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. It's from one of my favorite pieces of fiction, Babel by R.F. Kuang, where she wrote, "Nice comes from the Latin word for stupid. Nice comes to us by, so it means weak, clumsy, silly from the French derived, and Latin, ignorant and not knowing. So sometimes in life, you cannot be nice in order to be successful."
Bravo.
Love it.
Yeah, that's very eloquent there. Great take. All right. And I wholeheartedly agree. The Cleveland Cavaliers are a damn good team. No one expected the Warriors to go 3-0. Let's finish the show on this note before we quickly do an NBA scoreboard. Larry, we'll start with you. They play OKC Sunday. This is thankfully the final game of the road trip. They're 3-1 on this road trip. No matter what happens Sunday, they're coming home with a winning road trip. But with that said, OKC is a challenge. They're a juggernaut of a team. I believe they're first in the NBA in defense, among many things. Your thoughts on yet another heavyweight bout?
Well, I mean, OKC is loaded. I mean, they've invested well, and now it's all coming together. I mean, Chet Holmgren can score. He can get to the line. Jalen Williams, they got two Jalen Williams, but Jalen Williams from Santa Clara is a tremendous talent. I mean, he's one of my favorite guys to watch in the league. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is awesome. Lou Dort, tremendous defender. Wallace is a great athlete. I mean, this is a good team. This is a really good team. Caruso knows how to play. Isaiah Joe, another guy who could flat out shoot the rock, man. He could shoot it at Arkansas. I like OKC. I mean, I think OKC is going to get the win, and I think OKC is going to win it. Probably going to win it all. I mean, I would probably take OKC right now if I was in Vegas and I was betting, the NBA title. I'd probably take the Thunder.
Wow, that's a bold take. So, so you're saying you think OKC is going to win the West, which is I totally would understand that, but you think they're going to beat either Cleveland or Boston in the finals?
Yeah, I mean, Boston, of course, won it all last year, but it's hard to go back to back. OKC, they've got a great collection of guys. Now, I think they probably could use one more kind of maneuver to maybe add one more piece to the puzzle, but they got some nice pieces there. I mean, Caruso, Isaiah Joe off the bench, and you got really, three really good players. I love the way Dort plays defense. Yeah. He's not much of a shooter, but man, he is a Hulk, and you can't get away from him in the half court. So yeah, I like OKC.
Sophia, before we go to you, while I remember this thought, I just want to add it. If the Warriors are going to beat OKC, I hope they do it this Sunday, or at least that they put all their focus into this game, for the simple reason that Isaiah Hartenstein is out with an injury. This is going to be a team that's harder to beat when he's in the lineup. So take advantage of this, please, because your chances are you're not going to face this OKC team again without Hartenstein manning the middle. They're a little smaller and lighter without him, and that's the style of team and play that this Warriors team is built for. I think they got a shot. To me, Cleveland is a nemesis for the simple reason that they got not one but two bigs that are really difficult to handle. I know they won tonight because of the three-point shooting. I get that. But Cleveland still, the way they're constructed with that size, it's going to pose a bigger challenge for the Warriors than, say, a team like the Celtics, who did not have Kristaps Porzingis, or the OKC Thunder, who don't have Isaiah Hartenstein. These are teams who are like the Warriors in the sense that they're deeper, but they're a deeper team built with wings, and that's exactly the Warriors style of play, man. This is a team that is locked and loaded with 9-10 wings who can blow you out of the court. So I think they got a shot in this game. I don't see a spread or a line for it yet. Otherwise, I would read that. But I think this Sunday, if the Warriors are going to beat the Thunder this year, this Sunday will be it. Sophia, your thoughts on Sunday's Warriors-Thunder game?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think this has to be the game to do it. And if we can look at another positive from tonight's game, it's the fact that no one really played extremely heavy minutes. So to a certain extent, while it is at the very last game of a road trip, they could still come in with some fresh-ish legs, but in order to kind of match the youth and the energy and the intensity that OKC plays with, I do think Steve Kerr will need to resort to some of the Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody players, especially since the Thunder are a very long team. So you'll need that perimeter length.
Yeah, Bill M agrees with you. And someone in the chat, Gamer F2P adding that Stephen Curry, he does not have back-to-back bad games. So that's another thing going for him Sunday. You know Steph is going to come back, wanting to improve on his play tonight, which is something to look forward to. That game tips off at 4. And, of course, Larry, I don't know if you're up for it Sunday night, but football's back, so you're probably busy. Golden Days, as usual, every post game will be live right here. And Larry, you and I, though, and I'm sure we're going to have other people joining us, will be back at it Tuesday night for the Klay Thompson game. That is going to be a huge one. Did you hear, by the way, that the Warriors are giving away captain's hats to everyone at Chase Center for Tuesday's game, and they're going to all collectively tip their cap to Klay?
Good for them. Good for them. Yeah, no, that's a nice little touch.
Yeah, it is awesome. All right, let's go through the scoreboard real fast. So, Sophia, anything else you want to add? Larry, anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so the scoreboard going around the NBA for this Friday evening. And yes, folks, it is Friday night. Thank the Lord. Thank the Almighty. Thank whatever God you worship that Fridays exist, because they are badass. So on the docket for the NBA on this Friday night, first and foremost, the Denver Nuggets improved to 6-3. They defeated Sophia, your Miami Heat. I don't know if they really are your Heat, but you're a Florida native. The Nuggets defeat the Heat 135-122. Again, Denver improves to 6-3. Nikola Jokic, 30 points, 11 rebounds, 14 assists for the Nuggets. Another triple-double. Tyler Hero, 24 points, 7 rebounds, 11 assists in the loss for the Miami Heat. Any thoughts from either of you on that game?
I mean, Jokic. I mean, come on. I mean, Jokic, 30, 11, and 14. I mean, these guys having some and you know, I mean, this time he had 5 turnovers, but he's just an amazing player.
Unreal. But with that said, Larry, I do think Denver's screwed this year, man. Unless they make a deal or something happens, like they don't have the depth and they don't have the shooting, I don't think, to be a serious contender this year. Just my thoughts. I don't know. Do you agree with that or disagree? Or
well, they definitely could use another piece, but I wouldn't put they got look at their starting 5. Yeah, their starting 5's really good, and yeah, they could use another piece. They could use another shooter, but they probably could get it between now and then.
Minnesota improves to 6-3 on the year. They defeated the Portland Trailblazers tonight, 127-102. Anthony Edwards, 37 points, 6 rebounds. The player we were just talking about earlier in the show, Robert Williams III, a.k.a. Time Lord, 13 points for the Portland Trailblazers in the loss. Good to see Robert Williams back. I wouldn't mind him in a Warriors jersey. I don't know about you two. I know we've talked about this, but he's a tough dude inside, man. I mean, life would be a lot easier for this Warriors team if they had a Robert Williams. That's just me. The OKC Thunder, who the Warriors will take on Sunday, they took care of business tonight against the Houston Rockets, 126-107. The Thunder improving to 8-1 on the year. The Rockets dropped to 6-4. Oh, I'm sorry, 5-4. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 29 points in the win. Dylan Brooks, 17 points for the Rockets in the loss. So the Thunder, does that help or hurt the Warriors? Sophia, I'll ask you first. Does that help or hurt the Warriors that the Warriors are going into Sunday coming off a brutal loss while the Thunder beat the ever-living piss out of a really good Rockets team?
Yeah, I think with the Warriors team, especially how we saw them perform in that second half and fourth quarter, they'd still have that sense of pride. So I can imagine, even Steve Kerr said that they're going to practice before that Sunday game. I could imagine that they're going to come into this game wanting to prove a point. That people are saying that, oh, it's just not to take it for what it is, their start. And I think that this Thunder game is a moment to make a statement. And I think that the Warriors can do that, especially like that comment said earlier, where Steph is not happy with himself. We know how Steph also kind of likes that OKC court as well. So
Hell
hopefully we
yeah.
can see some magic happen.
Hell yeah. Larry, is it make any difference that the Warriors got their ass kicked tonight while OKC kicked ass against a good team, or do you think that's irrelevant?
I think in the grand scheme of things, the Warriors should be rooting against everybody that's not, at the top of the West. So, in these battles with these teams at the top of the West, you want to be rooting for the teams, at the very top. They're going to be there anyway. So,
yeah,
I would say you want to see the OKCs of the world beat down on the Houstons of the world. Uh-oh. What happened? Saeed, you're
I was muted. Yeah, that was on me.
muted.
I
You're
was
muted.
just saying, look at this Donnie guy in the chat just being a total a-hole, saying the Warriors are fraud and the fans are delusional. And then Steve White, you can't be saying I agree to that, are you? Just the haters out there. They just always exist. I always say if there's haters, that means you're doing something right. That's just me. I don't know. I could be wrong with that. Moving on. The Memphis Grizzlies, who the Warriors play as part of the Emirates Cup, that starts next week with that Mavericks game. They play the Grizzlies after that. Memphis beat the Washington Wizards tonight, 128-104. Jaren Jackson Jr., another name we mentioned earlier, 39.6 rebounds in the win. Keontae George, 17 points, 6 rebounds in the loss.
Couple guys to watch in that thing. One, Zack Edey, what a pick that was. 14 points and 8 rebounds in 22 minutes. I realize this guy, is another brutal watch. You're talking about, I say I don't like watching slow-mo. I can't stand watching this guy either. It's like, it's crazy. But he's good, and he's effective. And to me, I remember a month before the draft, I looked at NBADraft.net, said he was going in the 40s in round 2, and sure enough, he went in the first round. And nobody in Memphis is upset with that, right? Because he's 14 and 8 in 22 minutes. He's already had some better nights than that. Zack Edey's a nice player. He really is.
Sophia, have you seen him play at all? I agree that he's not a fun watch. He's just a big clunky dude. Sophia, what are your thoughts on Zack Edey, if any?
Yeah, I've seen him play a little bit, and it's interesting to see how some of the skepticism about him as a pick coming out of Purdue was that he just thrived in that specific system. So it's good to kind of see that his overall skill set was able to translate to an NBA league, and especially with as dynamic as a team as the Grizzlies are.
Zack Edey is 7'4" and weighs 305 pounds. And yeah, he's kicking ass out there.
He's backing up my favorite, who I'd love to see the Warriors get, Santi Aldama.
Yes,
Santi Aldama shot 0 for 5 from 3 tonight, but he's a pretty good player too.
Folks, Larry knows what he's talking about. Just FYI. I feel like everybody that you scout ends up being a really good player. You know your stuff, Larry. Just want to give you your props there. The Phoenix Suns, by the way, when you talk about hot teams, they got to be in the discussion. They improved to 8-1. They defeated the Dallas Mavericks today, 114-113. Kevin Durant, who's an early MVP candidate, 26 points. Kyrie Irving leading the losing Mavericks with 29 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. I haven't had a chance to watch the Suns yet, but they're dangerous. Sophia, have you had a chance to watch them?
I haven't, but I mean, any team that Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal are all simultaneously on is going to be dangerous. It's kind of just a matter of, as usual for the Suns in these past couple of years, can they stay healthy? Is their bench going to show up? And are they going to be able to perform in the playoffs?
Yeah.
They got a couple guys on their team that I would love to see Golden State get. One, I really like Damian Lee. I think he's I really think he's a good bench player. I like him off the bench. And I like Bol. I like Manute's kid. I think Manute's kid's fun to watch.
Same. Bol is awesome, dude. I was bummed the Warriors didn't pursue him a couple years ago when he was available. Is it true, by the way, Bilal in the chat, who also, by the way, Bilal, you dropped $2 and said nothing. So thank you for the free cup of coffee. But Baloch adding to that, is it true, Larry, that you just like to say Aldama? Santi Aldama?
I like guys who can shoot the basketball for sure, and he can shoot it.
Yeah.
I really love Buddy Hield. I mean, I was the guy in the preseason saying to all my Kings friends, hey, Buddy Hield's going to be a way better with the Warriors than he ever was with Sacramento.
Yes, sir.
He wasn't good tonight, but Buddy's been damn good.
Yes, sir. Steve White adding in the chat that we never saw Moses Moody, Lindy Waters, and Buddy Hield play together. Kind of random, but I do remember those three playing together in the preseason and lighting it up. I don't know if that's what brought that memory out for you, Steve White. And then Damian LaRoche, a golden dazer for 2 months now in the chat. Happy anniversary. Saying, is it sexy time, music time? Sexy time, yes. We forgot all about that, Larry. Hold on, let me. And Sophia, I don't think you've been introduced to the club music here, so we'll get that going with the scoreboard. There we go. All right, sorry about
feeding
that.
the ducks, right? Feeding the ducks.
No, by the way, Larry, no one understands that reference except for us.
It's a StreamYard music choice.
It's called Feeding the Ducks. All right, so thank you, Damian. Going back to the scoreboard, just to finish up here. The New York Knicks improved to 4-4, beating the hapless Milwaukee Bucks, who were just a day or two ago thinking everything turned around for them after they beat the Utah Jazz, who might be the worst team in the NBA. Well, the Bucks are back down to earth. The New York Knicks defeated them 116-94. Karl Anthony Towns is starting to fit in with the Knicks. He's starting to put up some numbers. Tonight, no exception. 32 points, 11 rebounds for Karl Anthony Towns. Giannis Antetokounmpo in his final games in a Bucks jersey before he gets traded to the Golden State Warriors. You're not going to tell me you didn't like hearing that. 24 points, 12 rebounds in the loss for the Bucks. Is there a chance of that, folks? Sophia, Larry, any hope? Is it hopeful? Is it totally just wishful thinking?
They're not going to move Giannis. They came out and said it today. I mean, I think they came out and said they're not moving Giannis.
Who said that?
I just saw it on Bleacher Report.
Sons of bitches.
Said that Giannis is going nowhere. Here, I'll get it for you.
Well, we'll see what happens if Giannis actually speaks up and says, I want out. Because then, what are you going to do, right? You can't force the guy to... Well, you could, I guess, technically, but you're not going to keep Giannis on your team if he doesn't want to be there. Sophia, what do you think? Is there any chance of Giannis coming to the Warriors and making so many people's dreams come true?
It's extremely wishful thinking. However, the fact that there was a report, have to believe that there is something circulating in order to trigger that response of them saying that they're not going to move him. Also know that every single time Steph and Giannis seem to play together, they seem to really enjoy it. So
Here it is. Bucks NBA insider Jake Fisher explains why Milwaukee will be active to build around Giannis and Dame Lillard.
Okay, I saw
they're
that.
Looking to add, they're not looking to sell.
I saw that. Here's the funny thing about that report. The Bucks have nothing to offer in a trade. Nothing. Like they could. Speaking of wishful thinking, they could think all they want about making a trade to improve that team. Good luck. Like, have fun trying to do that because you have nothing to offer anyone else. No one's going to give you a player that's going to save your season. The Bucks are screwed. I don't know if either of you think differently, but that situation is just bad. The Boston Celtics rebounded from their loss to the Warriors. They defeated the Brooklyn Nets today in overtime, 108-104. Jason Tatum, 33 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Speaking of MVP candidates, Jason Tatum is an early favorite. Cam Thomas, 31 points in the loss for the Brooklyn Nets. Are either of you two paying attention this early in the season to MVP discussions? Because Jason Tatum is one of the early favorites. Larry, are you paying attention?
No. That is a ridiculous question. It's fucking November the goddamn 8th, and you're asking me about the MVP? They've only played like 9 games. Ben Simmons, by the way, was benched tonight. I don't know if you caught that. But,
bench? What do you mean? Like, he didn't play at all, or?
No, I mean, he was starting, I guess, and they put him on the bench. First time all year. He played 27 minutes off the bench. 8 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 steal, 3 turnovers. for Ben Simmons.
Sophia Jones, MVP? Is it too early? 9 games into the season, 8 games, whatever it is.
It is way too early. There's so many months, so many games ahead of us. I think a more pertinent conversation, I guess you could even say, is who's going to be the Emirates Cup MVP if you want to try to have those types of conversations. Overall season MVP, that's definitely premature at this point. I haven't been following personally.
Very fair. Very fair. And a couple more finals from earlier today. The Detroit Pistons. This was definitely not a game to watch. The Detroit Pistons defeated the Atlanta Hawks 122-121. Cade Cunningham, 22 points, 11 rebounds, 13 assists, a triple-double in the win. Trae Young, 35 points, 13 assists for the Atlanta Hawks. Detroit improves to 4-6 on the year. Atlanta drops to 4-6 on the year.
Well, I'll tell you, Atlanta has a big man that I think would be a great Warrior, and he doesn't play very much. Larry Nance Jr. He only had 1 rebound tonight, but Larry Nance Jr.'s got talent, and if I could get him out of Atlanta, I would try to get him.
You'd prefer Larry Nance Jr. over Clint Capella? That was another name in the chat that we addressed.
I like Larry Nance Jr. more than Clint Capella.
Would you?
I mean, they're different. They're different, obviously, but I think Nance is more of what the Warriors are looking for.
Would you hate the idea of Clint Capella going to the Warriors?
Yeah, I just don't think I think he slows them down. I don't think he's a good fit.
Sophia, what are your thoughts on those two players?
I would think that Larry Nance's skill set does kind of fit the Warriors' playing style a little bit more than a Clint Capella. When I think of Clint Capella, I think about his glory days on the Rockets with Chris Paul just running that pick and roll, which isn't really how the Warriors want to play.
That's fair. And the last final score of the evening, the Charlotte Hornets defeated the Indiana Pacers. A bit of an upset there, 103-83. The Hornets improved to 4-5. The Pacers dropped to 4-5. Brandon Miller is starting to look like a potential superstar in the NBA. He had 29 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists in the win. Pascal Siakam, 27 points, 3 steals in the loss. Have either of you two watched Brandon Miller play this year? Because the leap is there.
He had the game winner the other night.
Yes, he did. That's Charlotte could have something, man. I mean, I know Miles Bridges is an odd piece of that puzzle. I mean, I don't know how you root for that guy, but they've got some talent between LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller. Sophia, have you been paying attention at all to the Charlotte Hornets? Anything going on there?
I haven't been paying attention too much, but the group, when we talk about youth and how that is very much a trend in the NBA, and you look how the Thunder are now and how basically they were able to grow, that could definitely be a possibility with the Hornets, especially since they put so much potential into their draft pick this past year as well. 2
games is going on right now. One of them involves the Warriors' little brother, Larry Krueger. Larry Krueger, your Judge brother's your older brother, is that correct?
Yeah.
So your older brother roots for the Warriors' little brother. Okay. Well,
he's a Kings fan. He lives in Zack.
Yeah, exactly. So the Kings trail the Clippers right now. There's 3:28 remaining in the fourth quarter of that game. They're at Golden One Center. Is that what it's called? Or is it just Golden Center? Whatever it is. The Clippers lead 98-89 in Sacramento. Larry, do you talk to your brother often? And regardless of the answer, like, does he talk about the Kings with you a lot? Like, is he feeling good about them or no?
Yeah, he's optimistic about the Kings.
Okay.
He's a Kings fan. But the Kings didn't have a very good preseason. They've had some weird vibes. They're off to a 5-3 start. It's kind of a weird vibe group. I mean, they added DeRozan. That was a great addition. But they just don't feel like they're getting better. I don't know. It's kind of they're in a unique spot right now because they don't quite have the right mix, but it's probably the best talent they've had in a while.
Yeah.
I do think they have more talent than Golden State in some ways, but they got more guys in their prime. But I don't know.
Not the depth.
I think they're gonna struggle, even though they've got good talent. I think they're gonna struggle.
Their depth seems to be an issue. Like Trey Lyles played 7 minutes off the bench tonight, 0 points. Alex Len played 9 minutes off the bench tonight, 0 points. Keon Ellis played 19 minutes off the bench tonight, 3 points. The only bench player that seems to give them consistency is Malik Monk, who has 17 points tonight. Speaking of the Kings, this is a random trivia for both of you. Who in the NBA, which duo in the NBA is your net ratings leader? For some perspective, Stephen Curry and Buddy Hield are fifth, or were fifth entering tonight, as a plus 76, which is the top net rating duo on the Warriors. But do you know who the top duo in the overall NBA is? And I'll give
Fox
you a hint.
Sabonis.
It involves the Kings.
I'll say Fox and Sabonis.
Sophia?
I would have to go with that. Yeah.
Sabonis is, you're both half right. Sabonis is one piece of the puzzle. It's Sabonis and Keegan Murray are number one in the entire NBA in net rating.
Keegan Murray had a brutal game tonight. 2 of 10 from the field. He's 0 for 6 from 3.
Who would you rather have, Keegan Murray or Jonathan Kuminga? Larry, you first.
Probably Keegan, just because it's a game of skill.
Interesting.
He's got skill.
Sophia, what do you think?
I would honestly have to agree, because with the Warriors and how they want to shoot so many threes, Keegan Murray, he's a shooter. I think that would work, and he's longer than Kuminga as well.
Interesting. I would still go with Kuminga just because I think the ceiling is higher, but it would be a tough one. And the fact that you two both said Keegan, that shows me just how close of a debate that would be. That's fascinating. And one last game, and we'll wrap up the show with this. The LA Lakers are about to hand the 76ers their 7th loss in 8 games. Philadelphia is dead last in the Eastern Conference. They're about to be 1-7. The Lakers are about to improve to 5-4. They lead Philly 110-94 in LA. LeBron James, 21 points, 12 rebounds, 13 assists in that game. A triple-double for LeBron. Andre Drummond for Philly. You know it's not going good when Andre Drummond's your top performer. 14 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists for Andre Drummond. Let me ask you this, man. I call Daryl Morey Dork Elvis. That's his nickname. And I use that nickname a lot because I think it sticks for very good reason. I've been saying for years Morey's grossly overrated. It's mind-blowing to me that he has this much power for this long, and the Philly thing is just spiraling out of control. That looks ugly. I mean, the Bucks is ugly. The Bucks situation's ugly, but Philadelphia is right behind them. Larry, your thoughts on the 76ers about to drop to 1-7 with all the injuries and the weird roster construction? Your thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm not even there, but just looking at the names on this team, I can see that all the problems. I mean, Kyle Lowry once upon a time was good. Now he's fat and old, and he shot 1 for 7 tonight. Kelly Oubre, thank you.
Warriors legend.
He is just one of the worst basketball players. Talk about a guy who's a great athlete and a terrible basketball player. That's Kelly Oubre. 0 for 4 from 3 tonight. I mean, he shoots you out of games left and right. He thinks he's a shooter. He's not. He's got a huge ego. That team's a nightmare. Paul George makes a ton of cash. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like Reggie Jackson, but on this team, I don't know. They do have Jared McCain from Duke, who's a really good young guard. I like him. And I like Bona, the rookie from UCLA, the big man. And they also have Lester Quinones.
Yes,
who's on this roster, but now the Philly's a tire fire, man. That's a terrible chemistry right there.
Well, it's a bad scene for sure. Sophia, any final thoughts on anything as we wrap up the show tonight?
Not honestly. I feel like we got a lot out. I'll touch a little bit on the Sixers just because, I mean, Embiid's still out, but I also feel like with that team, weirdly constructed because there are a lot of players that have names attached to them. They just don't mix and gel well. So again, kind of across the board, it's early in the season, so we'll see more how things play out, and hopefully the Warriors can, keep on not the trajectory of last game, but before that, they stay on that.
Yeah, I like that. Larry, any final thoughts, brother?
No, man. Good show. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, dude, thanks for having me. This was a dual stream. I appreciate you as well, brother. And Sophia, thank you as always. And for folks out there wanting to follow Sophia Jones on social media, she's on Twitter at SophiaJones_2. Is that correct? Did I get it right? Okay, good.
Correct.
Larry Krueger, you can follow him on all social media platforms at Sports Larry K. You can follow me on Twitter at Surf Journalist, on Threads at Dog Wild. Thank you, everyone. Friday night. We got that going for us. This was a great show, by the way. You two just were on fire. Props to you two. You nailed it. Thank you. I guess that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.